Alright guys, so I wanted to take a few minutes to teach you guys how you might go about learning a new topic all on your own. So I'm going to start with some LEDs. You guys can search through any of these and grab anything you want, but here's what I would do. So I'd start with my Arduino, and I know what I want to demonstrate here for you, so I'll just grab what I'm looking for. You see these NeoPixel strips? This one has 20 LEDs, that's why it's called 20. So I'll start with that one. You'll notice here it has 3 pins, ground, 5 volts, and DIN, so digital input. So we know it's going to take a digital input. We'll get to that later. But for now we know it needs a ground. We've done that before. This is nothing new. So let's wire up our ground. Here's plus 5 volts. Remember, that's found right down here. Right, our plus 5 volts should be red. Our ground should be black. We'll go ahead and do that. Now, remember, Google and YouTube are your friends. There's probably nothing we could ever do in this class, no matter how complex, that hasn't been done already. And we can go and Google it. So we'll look for NeoPixel. You can see I've done this already. Strip code. Learn.adafruit. This lady has made tons and tons of money from these tutorials. Notice all this stuff for sale on her website. This is a great place if you want to buy some stuff of your own. A lot of stuff is really, really cheap. So anyway, we see this code. Now the question is it for your Arduino? If you're on a website such as this, learn.adafruit, then you know it's for an Arduino. You should also be able to tell now by coming down here and looking at, is there a void setup? Yep. Is there a void loop? Yep. The other stuff just is what's going to make our LED run. So if you see those, then you pretty much know it's for an Arduino. So we'll go ahead and copy this. All right. I would highly recommend you don't just do exactly what I'm doing here. You take a few minutes and read this page. Notice there's really not a whole lot of writing, right? There's not a whole lot to read, which is why these are so helpful. But take a few minutes, probably a 5-minute read. One of the things you're going to notice is edit the N underscore LEDs value to reflect the actual length of your NeoPixel strip. That's going to be important in a minute. So we come back over here, we go into our code, change it to text, delete what's there, and paste. So that N underscore LEDs, this bot is defaulting to 144. Ours is 20, so we'll change that. Also notice, even though we're not creating an integer variable, we're defining the pin, right? So we're using this new command. Again, you don't need to know the underlying basics of it, all the nitty-gritty details. You just need to know it's there. So if I wanted to use pin 7, I could just copy what they're doing, and we would have to give it a different name. You can't name it pin again, but then call it 7, right? The spacing here doesn't matter, but one of the key points here is just model what you're seeing, right? And by modeling it, hopefully down the road we'll fill in some of the blanks. What is this define, right? For right now, it's not so important. And I changed this to 20. I can definitely look through the rest of this. You should understand now. Remember before we would create something like integer and call it blue and give it a number? Well, this is the type of variable we're creating. This is the variable, and this is the value we're giving it. Remember, I can comment this out, it turns green, and now it's just a comment. It won't read that. But what I want you to look at is the setup here. Here's the integer, or I'm sorry, here's the variable type. This was an integer. This is an Adafruit underscore NeoPixel. So there's some kind of something in the memory already, right? And it's done by this line. But again, more on that later. telling us that this is a variable, this is a container, and it's obviously a container for the NeoPixel. And then they're just naming it, and they're giving it a very simple name, strip, right? So notice this setup is pretty much the exact same. The variable type here. We gave it a name, blue, we gave it a name, and then we set it equal to something. So that's a bit different here. Again, you would get this from the documentation. So here it's set equal to this. Notice we have this method. This method has 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters, right? So there's 4 things we're feeding into it. The number of LEDs, the pin, this GRB, which we can probably assume is green, red, blue, and whatever this is. You see the KHZ, that's probably the speed, kilohertz, how fast the bulbs can change or light or something. All right, so not so important. If we need some of that information, we can fill it in later. But now to the loop part. We know the loop part is what's going to run. And then down here, these are called functions, and there'll definitely be more on that later. But when you see the code running, it's running this. This is just going to change the color. So let's take a look at the color. If I run this code, we'll start it. Let me shut that out. Change it so we can see it. All right. Oh, whoops. Left out a step. So back in the code, pin 6. All right. Let's wire up pin 6. My bad. I get excited about this stuff, and I tend to skip steps. All right. So there we go. Now we'll run the code, and we'll see there's green, there's blue, and there's red. So how is that happening? But you look at this first line of code. It's telling us red, green, blue, right? So you just need a little bit of detail here, right? So within this first parameter, the first parameter that's fed into this is red, and it varies from 0 to 255. So if I have 0, 0, 0, there's no color. The second number here, the second integer value, represents green. Again, 0 to 255, 0 no color, 255 would be green. And finally, this one, 0, again to 255, with 255 being blue. So that's what we see here. 0, 0, 255, that made your blue. You can erase that, you can erase that. So if I put 255, again, something we've seen already, we'll just do it. Now we should just see green, right? And then this is 0, 0. I can copy and paste one or more of these lines. I can put this as many times as I want and have as many different colors chasing as the board can handle, right? So, you know, I can copy and paste all of these and just have really a boatload of colors if that's what I chose to do. The final thing I'll leave you with is, once you get some of this basic knowledge, like I've told you, this is red, green, blue. Let's say now you want to experiment and figure out different colors, right? So you might come in here and Google search something like hex codes for colors. We don't want the hex code, actually. So here's the hex codes. See this pound for a C, right? Yeah, we don't necessarily need that. Computer science class, you will learn all about that. I can teach you some of, not some, but I can teach you that at some point. If you're really interested in, maybe no, I keep clicking the same one. Let me go down. Yeah, this one. So I can pick a color, right? Notice I have all kinds of shades and stuff to pick from. Where's my hex code? I'm sorry, my hex code's here. Where's my RGB? Oh, they're here given already. Okay, so you can just scroll through this website, and if you see a color you really, really like, magenta, 255, 0, 255, right? So if we punch in those numbers, we would get magenta, so we can try it. 255, run our code, we should see magenta. So once you get comfortable just using, notice it's going to stay blank for a while because it's going to run each of these before coming back to the magenta, right? So that's why it stays blank, because I've added so many lines. So you know, I can just mess around with it here, and well, we don't need all zeros and 255s. I can just pick some random numbers that fall between those values, 250 and I don't know, 67. So you can just mix and match random numbers, or you can come over to a chart like this and find colors that you want, right? Notice white is all 255s. So come back, run it one more time. And this is kind of the process you would use. Now that you have some of the basics, you can start to really look at more and more complex circuits on your own, and some of the coding. What I did here with breaking down the code and trying to figure it out is going to be your most valuable tool in learning coding, right? I can teach you all day long. Getting in there and actually doing it, making mistakes and working through it, going to be your best teacher. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.